Okay, so we're looking for stories that only video games can tell. Not just good stories, but ones that couldn't exist in like a book or a movie. That's a fascinating challenge. We dove into a Reddit thread on our gaming suggestions. It's where people are debating this, and wow, did it get deep?
Yeah, it's amazing how passionate people get about this topic.
Yeah.
What I find fascinating is the sheer variety of approaches people take to answer this question. It really highlights how many unique possibilities interactive storytelling opens up.
Right, and so many games got mentioned. But before we get lost in a sea of titles, let's look at some of the common threads that emerge from this discussion. One that pops up a lot is this idea of being the protagonist, not just watching them, but being them.
Absolutely. A lot of commenters emphasize games where you, the player, are making the choices,
Yeah.
shaping the character, facing the consequences. It blurs the line between player and protagonist in a way that passive mediums just can't.
Yeah, it's like in Disco Elysium, which folks brought up a lot. You're this amnesiac detective trying to solve a case, but you're also battling your own inner demons. You define his personality, his skills, even his political beliefs. And those choices directly impact the story and its ending.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're not just watching a character go through these things, you're actively shaping their experience. That level of agency creates a sense of responsibility for the narrative that's unique to gaming. It's like your choices have weight in this world, which makes the story hit harder.
It's almost like you're living through the consequences, not just reading about them. Speaking of tough choices, Spec Ops. The Line is another game that comes up a lot in this context. It's a shooter, but it gets really dark really fast.
Right. It subverts expectations by forcing you to make morally difficult choices. It's not about being a hero. It's about confronting the consequences of violence, even when those actions are basically dictated by the game itself.
And it all culminates in that infamous white phosphorus scene. Just brutal. It really makes you question the nature of player agency and the whole ethics of virtual violence, which oddly enough brings us to BioShock.
Yes, the would you kindly twist. Talk about feeling manipulated. But that's the point, right? It wouldn't land as hard if it were just a movie.
Exactly, because in a film, you're watching someone else get tricked. But in BioShock, it's you following those instructions. And when the truth comes out, it's like this meta commentary on how games work, how we trust them to lead us.
Precisely. It plays on that inherent trust we have as players, the expectation that we're supposed to follow the prompts. By subverting that trust, BioShock delivers this powerful commentary on free will and the illusion of control, something a book or film just couldn't pull off the same way.
Okay, so we've seen how games let you be the hero making tough calls, but sometimes the story itself is the puzzle. Another fascinating concept that comes up is what one commenter calls jigsaw puzzle storytelling.
I love that analogy. It perfectly captures those games where the narrative isn't presented linearly, but in fragments that the player has to piece together, like you're assembling a puzzle, but the puzzle is the story itself.
And Outer Wilds is a perfect example. You're exploring a solar system trapped in a time loop, uncovering the secrets of this long-gone alien civilization. But there's no hand-holding, no quest markers telling you where to go. You have to follow your own curiosity, your own intuition, and connect the dots to solve the mystery.
Outer Wilds does a brilliant job of mimicking how we learn in real life, right? It's not always this neat linear process. We gather information, make connections, sometimes stumble upon unexpected revelations. And that's exactly how the story unfolds in the game.
Totally. It's like you're a space archaeologist piecing together clues from this ancient civilization. And when you finally have that aha moment, it's so satisfying. Another game that does this puzzle-like storytelling really well is Subnautica.
Yes. Survival and discovery are the driving forces in Subnautica. You crash land on an alien ocean planet and have to figure out how to survive. The story unfolds organically as you explore, gather resources, build your base, and encounter the strange life forms of this underwater world.
Right. It's not like someone's spoon-feeding you the story. You're stranded alone with just your wits and a diving suit. And as you delve deeper into this alien ocean, you start piecing together the history of this planet, the fate of those who came before you, the secrets that lie hidden beneath the waves.
It's a brilliant example of how gameplay itself can be a form of storytelling. The act of exploring, surviving, researching is all part of uncovering the narrative. It's a story that emerges from your actions and choices, not one that's passively presented to you.
Okay, last one for this puzzle category, and it's one of my personal favorites, Return of the Obra Dinn. It's a detective game where you're trying to figure out what happened to the crew of this ghost ship.
Oh, Obra Dinn is a classic.
Yeah.
But it's not your typical detective game, is it?
Definitely not. You have this magical pocket watch that lets you travel back in time to witness these frozen moments, these snapshots of what happened. And from these fragmented clues, these echoes of the past, you have to deduce the events that led to the ship's demise.
It's like being a spectral detective, right? Piecing together a tragedy from whispers and echoes. And it's so satisfying when you finally crack the case, when those seemingly disparate clues click into place and reveal the full picture. A book or a movie could tell you what happened, but Obra Dinn makes you feel like you solved it.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about being the protagonist and jigsaw puzzle storytelling, but there's another aspect that keeps coming up in this Reddit thread, and it gets to the heart of what makes games so unique. It's the idea of gameplay mechanics as storytelling.
Now we're getting to the good stuff. It's about those games where the mechanics aren't just a means to an end. They're woven into the fabric of the narrative. They enhance the emotional impact of the thematic resonance, even the way you perceive the world within the game. A book can describe a feeling, but a game can make you feel it.
A perfect example is Crypt of the Necrodancer. It's this roguelike dungeon crawler. But here's the twist. You have to fight to the rhythm of the music.
Oh, I love Necrodancer.
Yeah.
Such a clever concept. But how does that tie into the storytelling?
Well, it's not just a gimmick, it's baked into the narrative. The rhythm mechanic reflects the protagonist's journey, their struggle to find their own beat, to overcome obstacles in sync with the world around them. It's like the gameplay is a metaphor for the story.
That's brilliant. It's not just about moving to the beat, it's about moving to the beat of your own story.
Exactly. And then there's Super Hot, where time only moves when you do. It's a shooter, but it feels like a puzzle game at times, because you have to think ahead, plan your moves, dodge bullets in slow-mo, and basically orchestrate these balletic displays of violence. Super Hot uses that time-bending mechanic to reflect the protagonist's perception, their ability to control their environment, to manipulate time itself. It's not just a cool visual effect. It's about putting you in the mindset of a character who experiences time differently. Could a movie really replicate that feeling of being in control of time itself? I don't think so.
Right. It makes you feel so powerful, so in control. Now I have to bring up Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. Remember that sanity meter?
Oh, how could I forget? That game knew how to mess with you.
It messed with you in the best possible way. You'd start seeing things, hearing voices. The game would even pretend your console was malfunctioning. Pure genius.
It's a classic example of how gameplay mechanics can directly impact the player's experience, to blur the lines between the game world and reality. You weren't just playing a character losing their sanity, you were experiencing it firsthand.
It's like the game was reaching out from the screen and messing with your head.
Which I guess brings us to our next big theme, the meta-narrative. Games that get self-aware, you know.
Yes. The realm of games that break the fourth wall, comment on the nature of gaming itself, blur the lines between creator, player, and story. This is where things get really meta.
And a classic example of this is Metal Gear Solid 2. Remember that twist where you realize you're not actually controlling the character you thought you were?
Oh, that was a mind-blowing moment.
Yeah.
Talk about subverting expectations. It's like the game designers were directly challenging our assumptions about player agency and the whole idea of a predetermined narrative.
Because like the game was saying, hey, you think you're in control, think again. And that kind of meta-commentary is something you just wouldn't find in a traditional narrative medium.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It forces you to question your role in the story, to confront the limitations of your own agency. It's a powerful statement about the nature of video games as a medium.
Okay, speaking of mind-blowing twists, let's talk about Doki Doki Literature Club. It starts off as this seemingly innocent visual novel, then it takes this dark, twisted turn. It literally starts messing with your game files like something out of a horror movie.
Doki Doki Literature Club is a masterclass in using meta-narrative to create a truly unsettling experience. It breaks down the barrier between the game world and the real world, making you question the nature of reality, the relationship between player and character, even the code that makes up the game itself. It's like the game is becoming self-aware and turning on you.
It's one of those games that stays with you long after you've finished it. And you know, a lot of people on this Reddit thread are bringing up the games of Daniel Mullins, Pony Island, The Hex, Inscription.
Yes. Daniel Mullins, the master of meta. His games are like puzzles within puzzles, stories within stories, constantly subverting your expectations and making you question what's real and what's not. And he does it with this playful, almost mischievous sense of humor, which makes it even more brilliant.
Like he's enjoying the fact that he's messing with your head.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from being the protagonist to jigsaw puzzle storytelling, to gameplay mechanics as narrative, and the mind-bending world of meta-narratives. But there's one more big theme that emerges from this Reddit discussion, and it's all about choice and
Ah,
consequence.
yes, the concept of multiple endings and replayability. The idea that your choices can have a lasting impact on the game world, that different paths lead to different outcomes, and that playing a game multiple times can reveal new layers of meaning, new perspectives on the story, even entirely new endings. That's something you just can't do with a book or a movie.
And Undertale is a shining example of this. Your actions have consequences, sometimes permanent ones. You can choose to befriend monsters, spare their lives, or go on a full-blown genocide run, killing everything in your path.
And those choices don't just impact the ending you get, they can actually affect future playthroughs. It's like the game remembers your actions and judges you accordingly. It's wild. Undertale uses its multiple endings to explore themes of morality, compassion, and the weight of our choices. It's asking you to consider the consequences of your actions, both within the game world and in your own life.
And it's a game that rewards replayability. By experiencing different paths, making different choices, you gain a deeper understanding of the characters, the world, and the underlying message of the game.
And sometimes you even uncover hidden secrets or unlock new content. Talk about incentive to explore every nook and cranny.
Exactly. Replayability enhances the storytelling experience, making it more personal and meaningful. Another game that gets a lot of love for its multiple endings is Nier Automata.
Oh, Near Automata. That game is a masterpiece of heartbreak. It has multiple endings, each offering a different perspective on the story. And to truly understand the full narrative, you need to replay the game multiple times, experiencing it from the viewpoints of different characters.
Nier Automata uses its multiple endings and replayability to deconstruct traditional storytelling conventions. It challenges the idea of a singular objective truth, presenting the narrative as this fragmented, multifaceted experience that you can only grasp by exploring multiple perspectives.
It's like the game is saying there's no one right answer, no single version of the truth. It all depends on your perspective. And speaking of games that mess with your head, let's talk about Soma.
Ah, Soma, a game that will haunt your dreams. It's a sci-fi horror game that dives deep into themes of consciousness, identity, and what it even means to be human.
And its twist ending, which hinges on the player's understanding of the game's mechanics and their own role in the narrative, is something that just wouldn't work in a passive medium. It makes you question everything you thought you knew about yourself and the world around you.
Selma uses its interactive nature to deliver a powerful and disturbing commentary on the nature of self, the fragility of memory, and the existential dread of facing our own mortality.
It's heavy stuff, but it's brilliant. And I think it's a perfect example of what makes video game storytelling so unique and powerful.
It's the ability to make us feel something, to engage with the narrative, not just as observers, but as participants. It's about blurring the lines between story and gameplay, between creator and player, between the virtual world and our own reality.
It really is amazing how games can make you feel things that just wouldn't hit the same way in a book or movie. Like you said, it's that blurring of lines between the player and the story that really makes it unique.
Exactly. And it's not always about complex plots or mind-bending twists either. Sometimes it's the simple act of doing something in the game that tells the story. One commenter brought up unpacking, a game where you literally unpack boxes as a character moves through different stages of their life.
Hey, seriously, unpacking boxes, that's a game.
I know, right? It sounds almost mundane. But the way unpacking uses objects and how you arrange them to tell a story about growing up, moving on, and the relationships we carry with us is incredibly powerful. It's like each item is a piece of the character's history, and you're helping them build a new life one box at a time.
Wow, that's actually really cool. It's like those stories we tell through our belongings, the memories attached to certain objects, the way our stuff reflects who we are. And you're saying that translates into a compelling game experience.
Absolutely. Because you're not just reading about it, you're doing it. You're physically interacting with these objects, placing them in their new home, deciding what to keep and what to let go of. It's interactive storytelling at its finest. Speaking of unique mechanics, another great example is Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. It's a cooperative adventure game where you control two brothers simultaneously using different inputs on the controller.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How does that work in practice?
Well, each brother has different abilities, and you need to use both of them to solve puzzles and progress through the game. But the brilliance is in how the control scheme itself reflects their relationship. You're literally using both hands, both thumbs, to control these two characters who are dependent on each other. It's like you're embodying their connection, their need to work together to overcome obstacles.
So it's not just a gimmick, it's directly tied to the emotional core of the story.
Precisely. There's this beautiful moment where one brother has to carry the other across a river,
Right.
and you, the player, are literally using both joysticks to coordinate their movements. It's a simple mechanic, but it creates this powerful sense of empathy between the characters and the player. It's like you're feeling their bond, their love for each other through your fingertips.
Man, that's incredible. It really shows how game designers can use mechanics to tell stories in ways that just wouldn't be possible in other mediums.
Exactly. Sometimes it's not even about a complex narrative. It's about the experience, the feeling that the game evokes in you, like in Journey, a wordless adventure where you explore this vast, beautiful desert landscape. There's no dialogue, no text boxes, but the sense of awe, wonder, and connection you feel as you journey alongside other players communicating through simple gestures and musical notes is incredibly powerful.
Journey is one of those games that sticks with you long after you've finished it. It's almost like a shared dream, a collective experience that transcends language and cultural barriers.
Exactly. It speaks to something deep within us, something about the human need for connection, for shared experiences. And it's something that could only work in a video game where you're an active participant in the journey, not just a passive observer.
It's amazing how a game with no words can tell such a powerful story. Speaking of evoking powerful emotions, I remember being completely blown away by this War of Mine. It's a survival game set during the siege of Sarajevo, but you're not playing as a soldier. You're playing as a group of civilians just trying to survive.
This War of Mine is such a powerful game. It forces you to confront the brutal realities of war, the impossible choices people have to make, the emotional toll it takes on everyone involved. It's not about glorifying combat. It's about showing the human cost of conflict.
Right, it's like a punch to the gut because you're constantly faced with these moral dilemmas. Do you steal food to feed your family, even if it means putting someone else at risk? Do you risk going outside for supplies, even if it means getting caught in the crossfire?
Those choices weigh on you. It's not just about winning or losing. It's about survival, both physical and emotional. And the game does a phenomenal job of making you feel the desperation, the fear, the hopelessness of people trapped in a war zone.
Yeah.
It makes you question everything you thought you knew about war.
And it does it all through the interactive nature of the medium, right? By putting you in those situations, making you make those tough calls.
Exactly. You're not just watching a movie about war, you're experiencing it firsthand, at least in a virtual sense. And that makes the impact so much stronger. It creates a sense of empathy, of understanding that you wouldn't get from a passive medium.
You know, another game that really made me think about moral choices and the consequences of my actions was Papers, Please. Remember that one? You play as an immigration officer in this fictional totalitarian state.
Oh, Papers, Please is a classic. It's such a simple concept, but it's so brilliantly executed.
Right. Your job is to check documents, interview applicants, and decide who gets to enter the country and who gets turned away. But the game throws all these moral dilemmas at you. Do you follow the rules blindly, even if it means separating families or denying entry to someone who desperately needs help? Or do you bend the rules, risk your job, maybe even your safety to do what you think is right?
Papers, Please is a masterclass in using a simple gameplay loop to explore complex themes of morality, responsibility, and the human cost of political systems.
Yeah.
You're constantly faced with these ethically ambiguous choices, and the game forces you to confront your own biases and the consequences of your actions.
It's like you're trapped in this system that's designed to dehumanize people, and you have to decide how you're going to navigate it. Do you become a cog in the machine, or do you try to make a difference, even if it means putting yourself at risk?
It's a powerful experience, and it's
Yeah.
something that could only work in a video game where you're the one making those choices, feeling the weight of those decisions.
Absolutely. Okay, I have to mention one more game before we wrap up this section. What Remains of Edith Finch?
Oh, Edith Finch is a beautiful game. It's often categorized as a walking simulator, but it's so much more than that.
Right. It's a collection of short stories, each exploring the life and death of a different member of the Finch family. And each story is told through a different gameplay mechanic, a different visual style, a different way of interacting with the world.
Edith Finch is a masterclass in environmental storytelling and experimental gameplay. It uses the interactive nature of the medium to create this rich tapestry of family history, exploring themes of lost memory and the inevitability of death.
It's heartbreaking, but also strangely uplifting in a way. It celebrates the power of storytelling, the beauty of human connection, the way our lives are all intertwined, even in death, and the way it uses gameplay to tell those stories is just phenomenal.
Edith Finch is a perfect example of how video games can blend genres, experiment with storytelling techniques, and create experiences that defy categorization. It's a game that stays with you long after you finished it.
And I think that's what makes video games so special. They can be funny, sad, thought-provoking, terrifying. They can make you laugh, cry, question everything you thought you knew. But most importantly, they can make you feel things in ways that no other medium can act.
And that's because of the interactivity, the agency, the fact that you, the player, are part of the story. You're not just watching it unfold. You're helping to shape it, to experience it firsthand. And that creates a connection, an emotional resonance that's unique to video games.
It really feels like we've only scratched the surface here. I mean, we've talked about so many incredible games, but there are countless others out there pushing the boundaries of storytelling in ways we haven't even touched on.
Absolutely. And that's what's so exciting about this whole topic.
Hmm.
Video games are constantly evolving, and developers are always finding new and innovative ways to tell stories. But this deep dive wouldn't be complete without bringing it back to you and your experiences.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in these big, famous examples. But what about the games that have personally resonated with you? The ones that have left a lasting impact, the ones you keep coming back to, the ones that maybe even change the way you view the world.
Think about a game that truly moved you, that made you feel something profound, something you couldn't have experienced in any other medium. Was it a moment of triumph, of heartbreak, of revelation?
Was it the way a game made you grapple with a difficult choice? A moral dilemma that stuck with you long after you put down the controller? Maybe it was the feeling of building a connection with a character, a bond forged through shared experiences in a virtual world.
Or maybe it was the way a game's mechanics, the way you actually played the game, were so cleverly interwoven with the narrative that
Yeah.
it enhanced the emotional impact of everything you did.
Like in Papers, Please, where something as simple as stamping documents becomes this powerful statement about bureaucracy and moral compromise. It's not just about following rules, it's about the weight of those decisions and the impact they have on people's lives.
Exactly. Or think about a game like Journey, where the story is told not through words or cutscenes, but through shared experiences, emotions, and a sense of wonder that goes beyond language. It's like you're connecting with other players on a primal level, sharing something truly special.
Those are the kinds of experiences that highlight the true power of video games. They're not just about entertainment, they're about creating moments that challenge us, move us, and change us.
So as you reflect on your own gaming journey, ask yourself, what stories have you encountered that could only have been told in a video game? What moments have resonated with you on a deeply personal level?
Because in the end, that's what makes this whole exploration so fascinating. It's not just about the games themselves, it's about the unique ways in which they connect with us as individuals, how they spark our imaginations, challenge our perspectives, and leave a lasting impact on the way we view the world around us.
It's about recognizing that every player brings their own experiences,
Yeah.
their own interpretations, their own meaning to the games they play. Your answer to that question, what stories can only be told in video games, will be different from mine. And that's what makes this medium so vibrant and diverse.
Exactly. And as technology keeps advancing, as developers keep pushing the boundaries, the possibilities for video game storytelling are literally endless. We're just at the beginning of what this medium can achieve.
So keep exploring, keep experimenting, keep playing, and keep that conversation going. Because there are countless stories waiting to be discovered, to be experienced, and to be shared.
Happy gaming.
Yeah.